Hey everyone, welcome back in the kitchen. It has been a long time since we have done this. It has been a long time since I've really done any cooking at all the past few weeks. Between holidays, recovering from surgery. My wife had surgery a few weeks ago, so I've been tending to her for the last few weeks, but I'm happy to report that she has recovered nicely. She's doing great. Everything is fine. She's super excited to go back to work tomorrow. And life as we know it is going back to normal, which means I get back in the kitchen and get to start making videos like this again and cooking fun meals. So I'm excited to do it. I want to continue with what we've been doing, which if you remember from a few weeks back, we've been making things that are hearty and full and great for winter and cold weather. So tonight we're going to make chicken pot pie, and we're going to do it from scratch. We're going to do it in a cast iron skillet, and I got nothing else. In a cast iron skillet, and we're doing it all from scratch. You know, chicken pot pie, that's a fantastic dish. It is the epitome of comfort food. And a lot of times it gets thrown by the wayside, and people you take some chicken and some cream of mushroom soup and some cream of chicken soup, and you mix them all together and you put them in a pot with some frozen veggies and bake it in a pie crust, and that's it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually, okay, so once upon a time, that's how I did it, and it comes out really good. But it's a lot of fun when you do it from scratch. And when you do it, and you do it all yourself, you see how easy it is. Once you do it this way, you can't go back, you know? And for us in this house, most of the time when we make chicken pot pie, we only use one pie crust anyway. We don't put a bottom crust. We just cook the pot pie filling in the dish with the pie crust on top. So when you do it like that, and you use a cast iron skillet, it comes out even richer, and the presentation is fantastic. So that's how we're going to do it today. We're going to make a chicken pot pie in a cast iron skillet, only using one crust on top, and we're going to make the whole filling ourselves. So the prep work is honestly what takes the longest, and I've done most of it. I've cut up into fine pieces an onion, some celery, some carrots. I've put together all the seasonings. We've got chicken stock, and I've shredded a bunch of chicken. Now I'm going to do some of it also for you to see, because I want you to see exactly how I'm doing it and how we're doing it for this recipe. But you can feel free to mix match however you want and add and take away and just have fun with it. And that's what's fun about a dish like this. So first and foremost, you have to prep all your ingredients. So like I said, I've already cut the onions, I've already cut the celery and the carrots. And I saved a carrot because I wanted you to see when you, especially something like carrots when you're cooking them, because they're already so hard to begin with, you want to cut them into nice small pieces, because we're going to cook them, we're going to saute them down to like a soft consistency, maybe that you could pierce it with a fork easily. And if you cut them into too big of chunks, they take too long to cook, and then everything else overcooks. So, you know, you take your carrot, and I always cut it in half so I have a smaller piece to work with. And then I cut it basically in half again, see? And then in a small half moons. And you want to be thin about it, and you want to maybe, what would you call that? I would call that 1/4 of an inch thick. And that's what you're looking for when you cut, especially the carrots, because like I said, of all the veggies we're going to use today, they're the hardest one. So we want to cut them into nice thin pieces. And it really doesn't take long. Just remember to keep your fingers back and rock down. And that's it, see? Thin pieces. So you get all that cut, your celery, onions, carrots. Then you've got to cook your chicken. There are multiple ways you can do that. You can take chicken breast and boil them and saute them. There are recipes out there where people grill the chicken. I think that's a little bit too much flavor, so I don't recommend grilling. And I also think boiling you have to be careful with, because you really do run the risk of overcooking the chicken, and then it gets really rubbery and makes for a bad consistency. So I recommend sauteing them. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here, I'm going to saute one piece just so you can see it, and then we're going to shred it. I went ahead and shredded it into pieces just using 2 forks It is that simple. Come see this. Okay, so we're going to cook our chicken, and like I said, I'm sauteing the chicken breasts just because I like that consistency. I like that flavor that you get from sauteed chicken, and it doesn't require much for chicken pot pie. So I've got the saute pan. It's getting nice and hot with just about a tablespoon of olive oil. Take a chicken breast, and all I'm doing with this is putting some fresh cracked pepper and some sea salt, and that's it. Olive oil, salt, and pepper. And we're going to saute the chicken all the way through, and then we're going to shred it. Now, when you're cooking chicken, it's got to be to 165 degrees for a nice, safe internal temperature. All I honestly care about is that it is white all the way through. So I'm going to give it a few minutes on both sides, and then I'm going to cut it open. And as long as it's white all the way through, I'm pulling it off. I'm not even going to worry about temping it, because quite frankly, I'm going to shred it and put it right back in the oven for 30 minutes. It's going to be cooked by the time we eat. So we're going to let this cook on both sides. And when you're sauteing chicken breast like this in just a pan with olive oil, if you don't have one of these, get one. It saves the grease from going everywhere and making, well, a mess. So we're going to let that cook. Give it a few minutes, both sides, and then we'll shred it. Yes. As I said, the moment it is white all the way through, no pink in the middle, pull it off. And while you're cooking, you just keep flipping it because you don't want it to get too crispy or anything on one side. So I just kept turning it over and letting it cook. The one thing to remember, I had it on for a little while, but then I turned it off while we were talking because I didn't want it to be too loud. When you're sauteing chicken breasts on the stove by themselves with no other liquid but oil, turn the fan on, because otherwise all of your smoke alarms will go off. I learned that the hard way. So now I've cooked this chicken, 2 forks, and I'm just going to start ripping it apart. Literally just shredding the chicken. And you want to do it while it's hot. It comes apart easier when it's hot, and I'm just ripping it apart. Ripping bigger pieces into smaller pieces. And if I see a little pink, which actually I don't, but if I did, I really wouldn't worry about it because it's going to go right back in the oven. I've already preheated our oven to 350 degrees, so it's ready to go. So we're going to shred this chicken. When you shred it like this, it cooks a lot more evenly, and all the sauce and the filling makes for a great presentation. And frankly, this is fun. So why not take some forks and shred your chicken apart. And there we go, see? It's done. It's all ripped apart. You can put it with the rest of the chicken. Oh, hot. And we are done. So this was, you want between 2 and 3 cups of shredded chicken. This is just at 3 cups. So that'll make a nice big pot pie to easily serve 6 people. May even have leftovers. But that right there is 3 cups of shredded chicken. So as far as prep is concerned, we are just about done. The only thing we're going to do now is we're going to prep our pie crust and make that look nice before we bake all this and start putting it all together. So let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to show you how to do it. At least how we are doing it. Hang on. The end result of what you're after is going to look like that. I'm going to show you how to do this. Not hard, takes a few minutes, but it is fun to do. So come closer and watch what I'm doing, okay? All right, so here's what we're doing. First things first, I'm going to take some flour, put it on the bottom of your pie crust. Turn it over. And some flour on the top. Now, we need to make this nice and big. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to start doing this just a little bit. Get some width. And what we need is whatever pan you're going to be baking this in. And hopefully it'll be a nice cast iron skillet. So once you get it good and nice and flat and wide, take your pan, whatever you're cooking in, we're using this cast iron skillet, we're going to lay it down right on top. Now, see, I am wider all the way around. The pie crust is wider than the pan all the way around. And I'm going to give it a nice push down. There's my indentation. I'm going to use a knife and a fork for spacing. I'm going to put it down on the line and I'm going to cut the middle one and the outer edge. And I'm going to go over to the next middle, outer edge. And we're going to go all the way around. Middle and outer edge of the fork. This is a very delicate process and serious moment. So right now while you're watching this, please go right below here where the description is. Click on that subscribe button. So that's all taken care of. So you can see many more intricately done videos. Come on, that was funny. Somebody should be laughing. We're going to go all the way around. And once you get some slices, what you're going to do is you're going to take them and you're going to fold them in an X and then fold them under and set them down all the way around. Pick them up, 2 pieces, crisscross them over and fold them under. How easy is that? And fun. Crisscross, fold over. This is intricate and time consuming, but it's really pretty when it's done. You'll see, you'll like it, especially when it's finally cooked. Makes for a really pretty top. Cross and fold over, cross and fold over. And that's it. See how that comes out? Super easy. Then I just take the fork and I'm poking holes kind of in lines, designs, however you want to do it. I'm doing this just for air. But you can make any shape and design you want. And this is nice, especially when we're only using one pie crust. So I'm going to put the whole pie crust on top. If you were making this in a different pie pan and putting a crust on the bottom and pouring the pot pie filling in, and then you wanted to put a crust on top, you could do like some lattice work or something a little bit less intricate. But since we're only using the one crust, we're going to make the top really, really nice. So now that's it. Prep wise, we're done. That seems like forever, but it's not. That's done. Let's make our pie filling and then throw this in the oven. So here, come on around here and we're going to start cooking. Come on. So, cooking with cast iron. I love to do this. Everybody knows, if you've been watching, I love cooking with my wok that I got a while back. I'll use a wok for anything and everything. Since I've gotten this cast iron skillet, I'm using it pretty much all the time also. I love cooking in this. So any excuse I can get to throw a lot of stuff in here and throw it in the oven, I'll take it. So what we're going to do with the cast iron skillet on medium heat is we're going to melt some butter, about a half a stick, and let that start to melt down. And as that's going, really want to get it around so you get it everywhere. And other recipes will call for more. Some will call for a whole stick of butter. Some will call for a lot of oil. I figured this is pot pie. It's a nice creamy meal. So we might as well just go ahead and cook it in butter. And we're going to use some milk, and you'll see, it's nice. And the first thing we're going to put in is our onion. We cut that onion up nice and small. We're going to let that start to cook with the butter. As the butter's melting, the onion is cooking. Ooh, great smell right from the get-go. Remember, that's how you know you have a fresh onion. If when you're cutting it, you get a strong smell and your eyes start to water, and right when you drop it in the pan, you get a waft of onion right in the face, that's a good fresh onion. An old onion, no smell. So fresh onion, strong smell. So we're going to put in the onion in the butter, and I'm going to throw in our carrots. And we're going to let that cook for a little while. We're going for a soft consistency with the carrots and more of a translucent color with the onions. We want these to saute some in this butter and get some good flavor before we add our liquid. And I think we've talked about this before. When you saute in vegetables versus boiling them or cooking them in liquid, produces much different flavors and frankly better texture. So we're going to let that cook some on a nice medium heat. Let that go for a few minutes because these will take the longest. There we go. Let that get started. So as the carrots really start to soften, everything is cooking nicely together. As these carrots start to get a nice soft texture, I'm going to add in the celery. Since we've cut the celery stalk nice and thin, celery doesn't take as long to cook. And we're going to let the celery start to cook down. It releases a lot of liquid. A lot of water will release when the celery's cooking, and that's good. We want the liquid. Did you see that? Celery took off. Let the celery cook with the onions and the carrots, and we're going to add garlic. Now one of two ways. If you've got fresh cloves of garlic, awesome. Cheers to you. 2 cloves. 2 big cloves of garlic, maybe 3 small ones, but 2 big cloves. If you're using the jarred minced garlic or chopped garlic you could buy at the store, that's also fantastic. You want a heaping teaspoon and a half. A heaping teaspoon and a half of garlic. Or, like I said, 2 or 3 fresh cloves. Oh, I love the smell of garlic sauteing like that. We're going to let that go for a few minutes. Really cook down. And add a few more things. Step by step, this process, it's so worth it. See how beautifully that is cooking together? Starting to get a little bit of liquid, a little bit of water release from the carrots and the celery. Mostly from the celery. Okay, let's face it. The liquid's coming from the celery. Beautiful color. Beautiful. Now that we've got some nice color and texture here between the carrots and the color of the onion, got some liquid, some water from the celery. Let's do a couple of little things here. First things first, we're going to add our seasonings. Very serious seasonings over here. We've got thyme, basil, salt, pepper, onion powder. All of it. Half teaspoon of each. I'm going to add all the seasoning together. And I'm going to stir in some flour. A little bit of flour at a time. This is a half a cup of flour. I'm going to put in some flour and move it around. Put in some flour, move it around. I want to get everything coated in flour. This is kind of like making a roux, but we'll get into that in a different video on how to properly make a roux. But what we are using this flour this is where we're going to make our sauce. This is how we're going to get a nice, thick, creamy sauce with all this flour. So I've got a half a cup of flour that we've incorporated in here. Get everything covered in it. And our seasonings. And first things first, now that we've got a nice sticky consistency, all that liquid has been absorbed by the flour, which is exactly what we want. We're going to add our chicken stock. I'm just going to whisk and add. Whisk and add, because I want to get rid of all the clumps, all the lumps that are going to start to form. As long as you keep everything moving, the lumps will dissolve. And I think that's what messes people up, is that they start to see a lumpy consistency and it makes them nervous. No need to be nervous. Just keep everything moving. Keep your heat on a medium. Oh, that's fantastic. Give it some stirs. It's cooking. Give it some stirs. And then next, we are going to grab this is 1 cup. 1 cup, 3/4 of a cup of 2% milk, and 1/4 of a cup of light cream. Because why not make it even creamier? Just a little bit of cream though. Light cream, I love the flavor because it's light. But we've talked about this before. I'm not a huge fan of heavy cream. I don't like the flavor that comes with it. We definitely don't need it in a dish like this. This is mostly milk and just 1/4 of light cream. And we give it some good stirs. Everything is now incorporated in. There are no lumps at all. And this has to come to a boil. And as this comes to a boil on a medium heat, it's going to start to thicken. So we are going to let that happen. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stick here and let the sauce do its thing. Get a nice boil going. Oh, and if you haven't noticed, we haven't added any chicken yet. Ha, don't need to. We need to make the filling for the chicken. Perfect. Let's let that boil. How fantastic does that look? Look at that boil. Now that this is happening, we've got a good steady boil. It's really starting to thicken up. This is right where we are going to go ahead and basically stop. I'm going to turn this down to low. Basically no heat at all. I'm going to add our final stuff, set it up, and put it in the oven. So now that we are here, oh, this is perfect. We're going to add all of our shredded chicken. And peas. Frozen peas, frankly, are the best because, well, they'll slow everything down. They'll slow the cooking down a little bit. And, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to go ahead and pick out a whole cup of fresh peas. Frozen peas work just as well. You cannot use the ones in the can. Way too mushy. Frozen peas work great. Nice fresh peas that are frozen. I'm going to pour those in. Pour in our chicken. Mix it all together. And what we're after now is making everything as flat as possible. A nice flat surface. So we can go ahead and put on our crust. Now, the easiest way to handle the crust, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stove. Folded it in half, lay it right on top. And then unfold. Perfect. And it should fit right in after you have, there. Sits right on top. Come take a look at this. See how perfectly that fit? Sits right around. Got all the holes. You want a couple of the holes you poke in after you put it on, so they go in nice and deep, so you make sure you got some good ventilation. That's all they are really there for, is ventilation. And the last thing we're going to do before we put it in the oven, take an egg yolk, just the yolk, mix it with a little bit of water, and whisk it together. Make a little egg wash. And we're going to brush this on the whole thing. And this is what's going to give it a nice, beautiful color. Fluff it up. Cooks really well with the egg wash. And that's it. Egg wash is on. In the oven, 25-30 minutes until we have a nice golden brown crust. Oven was preheated at 350 degrees. Cast iron chicken pot pie from scratch. You gotta love that. All right. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love it. This is my favorite part. Look at this. Wow. Ooh, it's hot. Is that not beautiful? How gorgeous did that come out? Beautiful golden brown. And that's it. Seriously, a lot of steps, but wasn't that easy, or at least fun? It's definitely fun, and I promise it's easy. You just got to go ahead and try to do it. I'm not going to cut into this right now for one big reason. You got to let it sit for a few minutes. 5-6 minutes, it's got to sit. Just let everything finish and slowly cool down together, and final thickening underneath will happen while it's cooling. So we're going to let it sit for a few moments. But that's all you have to do. Those holes, we poked the holes on the crust while it was sitting on the counter to give it some look. And then when we put it on top, we poked some holes in the top to really go all the way through and vent the hot air out so nothing leaked around the sides. Don't be fooled. It's easy to forget this is hot, cooking it in cast iron. If you don't have something like this, you can still follow the exact same recipe. When it comes time to put it into an oven-safe pan, pour the filling in the crust. Or just pour the filling in the pan and put the crust on top just like we did. Or you could pour it in your crust, do some nice lattice work on top, and then bake it in the oven the exact same way. It's nice and it's fun to do it in the cast iron skillet. It gives it some great flavors, and it's all in one pot. But that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I'm sorry it's been a little while, but I'm back. I'm excited to be back in the kitchen. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you can see what's coming up. We'll be doing some quick tips and some more videos. Everything from making the perfect hash browns. I've got a lot of questions about hash browns lately. Making the perfect hash browns, when, how, and why to brine meat. All kinds of fun stuff coming up. So make sure you subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. And share it with all your friends. Thanks again. See you soon. Have a great week. Bye-bye.